Welcome back to EPM.org, Evangelist Pilgrim Missions, and welcome back today for Children's Corner. Today we are going to continue to read out of the 365 Read Aloud Bedtime Bible Stories, and today we are on day 22, Jacob's Marriage. And you can find this in your Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 29, verses 1 through 30. Jacob traveled to the city of Haran. There he found the same well where Elzerah met his mother Rebekah. A young woman herded her sheep to the well for water. This was Rachel, the daughter of Jacob's uncle Laban. And Jacob was so happy to meet her that he wept. And he fell in love with Rachel there. It was love at first sight. Laban welcomed Jacob into his house. And soon Jacob asked Laban, "I'll work 7 years to marry Rachel." And Laban replied, "Better that Rachel marry you than a stranger." And 7 years passed, and it seemed like only days to Jacob, because he loved Rachel so. And the day of the wedding came. The bride wore a thick veil, but when Jacob lifted the veil, it wasn't Rachel. Jacob had married Leah, Rachel's older sister, and Jacob didn't love her. He'd been cheated because Laban wanted the older sister to be married first. Can you imagine that in today's age? You're dating a girl and you're so in love with her, but her older sister hadn't been married yet. And when you ask for the father, you go to the father and the mother and ask for their permission to marry their daughter that you're in love with, and they tell you no, you must marry the older sister because she's yet to be married. Or at the wedding, when you expect your bride to be, the father walks down the older sister instead of the bride you wanted. This was the way it was in the book of Genesis. The oldest sibling was the heir. And therefore, they preferred that the older sister or the older sibling to be married off first. Then Jacob worked 7 more years for Laban. And finally, he married Rachel. In those times, men often had 2 wives. And Jacob lived with Laban 21 years. He had 11 sons there. Only one named Joseph was Rachel's son. And Jacob loved him best. Can you imagine that? The girl you loved for all those years. And you had 11 sons. And 10 of those sons were with Leah, the oldest daughter that you didn't even want to marry. And finally, the girl that you loved, Rachel, produced you a son, and you named him Joseph. And therefore, since Rachel was the one you loved the most, in turn your love for Rachel transferred to the love for Joseph. And you end up loving Joseph the most. The questions for today's lesson in day 22 are: why did Jacob work 7 years for Laban? He worked 7 years to marry Rachel, but was cheated. How did Laban cheat Jacob? Laban cheated Jacob for making him marry Leah first, didn't he? Until next time, God bless.